Hi, I'm Liz. Once in social networks, one adult man wrote me. At the time, I didn't have a lot of friends and decided to talk to him. Of course, there were thoughts, maybe this is some kind of maniac or pervert? But it wasn't what I thought, and I want to tell you this story. As long as I remember myself, my mother and I have lived alone. I never even asked where my father was or who he was. No, I did ask once, and regret about it. "Your father died a long time ago. Don't ask why or how," said Mother. I can't say that it hurt me to hear about it because he was a stranger to me. However, pain stays at heart. Deep inside, there was a hope that he was alive and that one day I would meet him. I grew up a difficult teenager. My mother worked as a waitress in a local bar, and on weekends she worked as a cleaner in a business center. I really appreciated her work and effort. I clearly understood that she worked 2 jobs for me to give at least some education. Yes, I went to city school. My academic performance was not perfect except literature. I liked to read and write. Secretly to my mother, I attended poetry nights at that bar where she worked, but it was on weekends. And I was also a good mask myself, acting as an anonymous person. I admit that the audience loved my work. I didn't have any friends in high school. It must have been weird for people around me to hang out with a girl like me. I listened to rock, wore black, and preferred to eat alone. Mrs. Maurice, our school principal, often called my mother to school because of my bad behavior. "Just hit Kevin. He was looking at me, and I hate being stared at. He's fat and probably didn't feel nothing," I mumbled again. My mother apologized to the director, promising that this would not happen again. Then she grabbed my arm and led me away from the school. It was easy to spot my other anger. After we got in the car, she took out a cigarette and lit it without saying a word. Her style. She doesn't make a scene behind the wheel for safety reasons, but as soon as we step inside the house, she started. "I do everything for you, but you! Will there be a day when you don't get into something?" I stood with my head down. "You're just like your father!" she shouted out, and then held her breath. She was afraid of her own voice, and all because it was the first time she had used the memory about him to reproach me. I was hurt by the fact that I had no way of knowing even his name. After closing myself in my room, I opened my laptop and got a message on MySpace. Someone with Nick JJ sent a friend request. I hesitated. I did not like new friendships, but that night I wanted to do something unusual for myself. So the conversation starts. It turned out that JJ also likes art. He is a musician who writes lyrics and music himself. We immediately found a common language. I saw his concerts, and I didn't mind that he was older than me. About a month later, we couldn't live a day without writing. With each conversation, I got more used to it. No, we didn't see each other, but we understood each other so well. I could share the most intimate things with him. He always listened, advised. I sent him my sketches of my works, and he sent me his tracks. We could spend hours arguing about something. It was cool. A month later, I asked him to meet me, invited him to my poetry night. JJ didn't look like he is the one who is shy, but he didn't give me a specific answer to my offer of a meeting. I was a little upset and took it personally, but then he wrote that he would definitely come. I woke up early that day, and I spent the whole day choosing the right look in my wardrobe. My mother comes into the room. I could see from her face that I did something bad again. "What is it this time?" "Are you communicating with someone online? Inviting him to meet you at a bar for poetry night that I didn't even know about? How do you know he's not a maniac?" She was mad. Of course, I was angry. She was reading my personal messages. We had a conflict. "You're talking with the wrong person! Hey!" she called after me. I got dressed, picked up my laptop, and went to the cafe. The mood was bad, but I was looking forward to a pleasant, long-awaited meeting. Jay came in after my performance. He also looked concerned. I went to him. It didn't turn out the way I thought. "You're doing great," he said, then hugged me. I didn't understand why he was acting so strange. Then my mother appeared in the doorway. I lashed out at her, yelling at her to stay out of my life. But my mother said she wouldn't let him ruin my life. "To whom?" "He's your father," she said and pointed at Jay. "What the hell?" "He's dead," I thought. "So I've been talking to my own father all this time? Did he know and keep quiet?" I felt betrayed. These two have drawn me into their relationship. How unfair. A week has passed. I still haven't spoken to him or her. My mother was apologizing, saying she didn't want to involve me. Jay, my father, never wrote to me again. I must admit I missed communicating with him because no one understood me so well. When he found out I was pregnant, Jay was afraid of it. He was a musician and didn't want to problem himself with responsibilities. My mother suddenly began the conversation sitting at dinner. She told me about her life before me. Suddenly I saw her in another way. Strong. My mother became a model for me. I apologized for our misunderstanding. A few days later, I texted JJ saying I wasn't mad at him, even though I was communicating with a person who pretended to be somebody else. It was great for me to communicate with someone like that. It changed something inside me. He only wrote, "I'm sorry for everything." And then life returned to its normal course. I stopped wearing black, and I think now I have friends. Hi guys, I'm Kira. Recently, some mysterious and sometimes frightening things have been happening around me. It's like some ghost is always around me and wants to hurt me. I even stopped sleeping properly because of it. I woke up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night until one day I found out all this was happening. My mom disappeared when I was 10. My father didn't tell me anything, and I didn't even know what really happened. Since then, my father and I have lived together. It was hard for Dad to work and look after me at the same time. He was very tired physically and mentally. I was still small and couldn't help. He couldn't do it for a long time, so he decided to find a woman to look after me while my father was at work. A housewife, so to speak. A very nice and kind woman came to us. Her name is Stephanie. We quickly found a common language with her and even became friends. She treated me well and tried to please me in every way. And Dad felt better. All the works carried out on the house, she and my father could work in peace. Stephanie soon became part of the family. As it turned out, she had a son named Jack. I met him 2 months later. It was the most unpleasant encounter of my life. From the first moment, he started acting like he was better than me. Jack's father left them when he was young, and Stephanie raised him herself too. Apparently, from the fact that his mother loved him very much and tried not to scold him, he grew up a bully. He refused to talk to me and showed me that he was terribly bored. It was obvious that Stephanie was ashamed of her son's behavior, and when they were about to go home, she whispered in my ear that I should not pay attention to him and kissed me on the cheek. It was very nice. Jack began to come to us more often with his mother. In the beginning, he behaved as if I didn't exist at all. Then, about a month later, he started doing nasty things to me. For example, he pulled my homework out of my backpack, and I only found out about it when I arrived at school, when nothing could be changed. Or he could have added salt to my ice cream before anyone saw it, and did all sorts of other mischief. At first, it seemed to me that all this was happening by accident. I even thought that there were some hidden forces. But as it turned out, all this was arranged by him to frighten me. At first, I tried not to react, but then I decided to complain to my dad. But it looks like Dad didn't want to ruin his relationship with Jack, so he didn't dare talk to him strictly. Besides, he thought I was exaggerating a little, and Stephanie just didn't know how to be strict with him, so he continued to do whatever he wanted. But that's not all. Sometimes my father went to work on the night shift, and Stephanie and Jack stayed with us. I had a very bad dream once. It was as if someone was standing over me and trying to reach my neck with their hands, and in my sleep I couldn't help but call for help and open my eyes. I was scared to death. I woke up in the middle of the night and my pillow was all wet with sweat. For a second, I thought the door to my room had just closed. At first, I was terrified, but then I thought, this is all just a residual impression from my dream. So I just tried to get back to sleep. But it didn't end one night. It was repeated more and more often. It seems that I even have a nervous tic. I decided to install a camera in my room in order to find out what was really happening. And here's what you think. It turns out that Jack specifically came to me at night to scare. But I didn't immediately show the video to my father. I didn't want him to fight with Stephanie. I decided that I would find out everything myself. Once I saw a diary of Jack in which he painted his life, shared his emotions. Of course, it is not correct to read other people's diaries, but I really wanted to. So I couldn't help opening his diary. To my horror, it said that he was very jealous of his mother and my father. I don't know what kind of jealousy it is. Maybe because Stephanie was starting to pay little attention to him, and therefore because of this, he wanted to quarrel with them. I thought that if he made me hysterical, my father would complain to his mother, and he would find another housewife. And then all the strange things that have been happening around me lately came the answer. I'm certainly on one hand understood Jack. But on the other hand, Stephanie has become for us like family. I wanted to put an end to his behavior. But so far, I didn't know how. One night I was thirsty and went to the kitchen for water. As I passed the room where Jack slept, I heard someone whimper softly. Looking to see what was going on, I saw that Jack was lying and crying. I felt so sorry for him and sat down to talk. When he saw me, he immediately crawled under the blanket. It turns out that Jack was actually not such a rude bully, but very vulnerable. I asked what happened. He replied that he was not getting enough attention from his parents. What is missing is a wise father's advice or guidance. At that moment, I remembered my mother. How I, too, missed my mother's warm caresses. That night, Jack and I had a warm conversation telling everyone what was going on in their hearts. After that, it was like a switch. I began to help my mother more at home. He stopped teasing me and even on the contrary kindly once gave me a chocolate bar. I think any person needs support and there are no bad people. You just need to find out what's going on in their hearts.